Welcome back to Big Mouth, and that was chapter 4. It was a very action packed chapter of the Snyder Cut. Lots of action, very interesting again to see the defined differences from this one to Whedon's movie. And as a certain conversation about Superman takes place, you really do see the differences here and a certain thing being discussed and a certain thing being agreed about. But in the Whedon cut in Justice League, there was a bit of a kind of disagreement, wasn't there? And I think we all know what I'm talking about, and I'm trying to be no spoilery. So again, it's very, very interesting how they're working with this situation as well. So brilliant, and I think we all know about Martian Manhunter, don't we? So we finally saw that reveal in this sequence too. That's a very interesting scene, seeing what the point of him doing what he was doing, visiting Lois. Basically, we all know, don't we? But I'm not going to say anyway. But it was very, very interesting, and he had a specific reason for going to see Lois, and it shows you what he actually thinks of her, because there's been this dynamic between them two since BVS. So that's really interesting as well. That's continued on, and yes, it's absolutely fascinating to finally see this thing, because no one really ever knew of Snyder's vision when we first saw Justice League. It's only when all the stuff came out, and it's such a unique take in the way it's presented to the audience as well. And as I keep on saying, I just wish I don't have the memories of the other thing that was made, because I think that my opinion keeps on kind of switching to that film. I certainly have no intention of watching Justice League ever again, and I just want to repeatedly watch this film so I can wipe out memories of a horrible memory, because this film's so interesting. And in this chapter, we finally see Darkseid, and it's very, very interesting. Now, Steppenwolf says something and mentions something which is very spoilery, considering what's going to happen with Flashpoint and what they're going to do there. And it's when I do my full review, I really want to talk about that. Snyder has literally name dropped the most vital component of the DC universe, and what Flashpoint is actually trying to do. In a way, he's kind of foreshadowing it, isn't he? Think about it, because that word has been mentioned now. When we do get to Flashpoint, it's a little bit more interesting. But of course, if the Snyderverse is an Elseworld, well, even if it's an Elseworld, it's still great, isn't it? So I really opened my ears then when he said that word. And as I say, we can discuss it on my spoiler review. But yes, seeing Darkseid for the first time, obviously we saw the history lesson, which was great. But yes, absolutely fantastic to see this thing come together. Because it's episodic, it feels a little bit like a TV show, and it feels like it's being structured by a TV show, a continuing kind of streaming series, and you can see all the little pieces coming together now. It's utterly fascinating. I've never experienced a film like this. I've never had the feelings watching it, because when you normally watch a film, you don't have 4 years of information with no context. And that's what we've had, information with no context, because the whole point of Snyder letting all the information drop, dribble drop if you like, was to tease the audience, to get us to keep on hashtagging and fighting. And it worked, and he's doing it again with Justice League 2 and Justice League 3. This is what's going on with Restore the Snyderverse, is the same tactics he used to help us release the Snyder Cut. He's doing it again. There should be no question that that's what he wants, and he will fight for another 4 years if he has to. I don't think he'll have to. This is hitting big. I mean, when you're kind of got a traffic jam, kind of a digital traffic jam that has HBO Go cease for some time, it shows you how popular this whole thing is. The turnaround in the opinions of him people saying some wonderful things about this film, because I think the audience and the critics are saying you can't judge this thing like you would judge a normal film. And this is, I think, if you're going to analyse Zack Snyder films, you have to look at them on a different level. And I'm not saying you have to make allowances. No, his film should be analysed constructively, like all films. So we shouldn't be saying, well, that's just how Zack works. No, no, no. But what I'm saying is you have to look at it in a different way. And you have to decide as a critic or a fan, can I live with this unique visionary way this man makes films? I can. But what's interesting about Snyder, as I said in the previous chapter reaction, is how his three DCEU movies thus far are so different. They're not the same. They don't have the same structure. They don't even, of course they have the symbolism and the narrative and the continuing kind of joints, but they're just so different. And I mean, it's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, if you look at Star Wars, the original trilogy, Star Wars was kind of this standalone kind of fun movie, but had some tissues there for a sequel. The Empire Strikes Back is a little bit darker, a little bit more unkinder to the characters. And Return of the Jedi is the one when everyone kind of beats the evil, if you like. And this is kind of similar to what Snyder's done thus far. Man of Steel is a darker Superman movie, but there's a lot of lighter mainstream elements in it. There's more smiling, there's more banter in that film. Then you get a really dark film in BVS, and then you get Justice League, which is a lot lighter than the middle film. Because if you kind of know about storytelling, that's what you do with trilogies. That's why nobody can understand what Patty's done with the Wonder Woman trilogy. Wonder Woman, the first one's kind of works in so many levels, and then the second one's too light. The tone of Wonder Woman 84 should have been, the tone of Wonder Woman 3. And so Zack's really going through the George Lucas kind of scenario, of course, on a very different level. As I say, I've never seen anything, any film, any TV show structured how this thing is. And I'm going to have to find time at some point to watch this as a movie, because I think that's different. But I just like doing these chapter reactions because I don't know what's going to happen next, which I really love. So the scenario basically is we're heading to that part, which I'm not going to talk about. Well, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I think we're getting to the resurrection of Superman. And that's going to be chapter 5, the next chapter I'm going to watch. So it's going to be very interesting again how that differs to what Whedon did, and how it's already differed. The discussion about it is very different to what Whedon did. Whedon decided to add a bit of drama to it. So that's interesting because he cut so much drama and excitement out of the film. He had to add a little bit back in. So I kind of get that. But yes, it's in going back to Barry Allen, as I was in the previous chapter reaction. He's an interesting one. Again, no spoilers, but he kind of goes to the kind of humor, but then he gets a bit more serious, and you can see he's an intelligent young man. And Cyborg just gets better and better as this film goes on. He's like a fine wine maturing. And people have said, oh, you couldn't do a Cyborg film. You could do a Cyborg film. You see, it's interesting because if there is a Cyborg movie, what do? Do you go back to the origins? Do you actually tell the story and have the father and the mother and then him seeing the full thing flesh out? Or would you just do a brand new adventure? It's interesting. I'll be very interested to see what they do with Flashpoint and how they deal with the fact that we've kind of met Barry Allen already. That's going to be very interesting as well. And they're going to obviously they're focusing on Barry's mother's death. So it's a very different kind of story for Barry, because Justice League isn't just his story. It's all the heroes and story. But yes, really fascinating. And let me just say again about Steppenwolf, so much more different. It's like peeling an onion. There's so many layers to this character that we discover in every chapter. 4 chapters thus far, and he's becoming a very interesting a character. And I think Kieran Hines, marvellous voice acting, of course. And I'm assuming in chapter 5 we see a bit more of Darkseid as well. Just really excited to keep watching this. I want to do my full review when I've seen it all as well. A proper spoiler review. This is kind of, the chapterized reactions are like my non-spoiler review, if you like, just to give all you lot the chance to catch up and watch the thing as well, because 4 hours, people have got busy lives. It's difficult just to watch it in one go. I mean, I know people on Twitter who have watched it 4, 5, 6 times already, and I don't know how they found the time, but I'm actually really envious. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of episode 4 of Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut, and I'll be back a little bit later to react to chapter 5. See you again soon.